Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Donovan.
And I'm Jordan.
Join us as we go into the pages.
Podcast!
Welcome to another episode. We need a song, I guess, for the beginning of our episodes.
You can take over that part.
Can't just be me.
That's what it's going to be.
Ridiculous. All right. Chapters 22 through 24.
This chapter 22,
Oh, man.
Painter finally gets some justice.
Yes. I was practically cheering as I read this chapter. Oh, it felt so good to read and have him freak out everyone.
So up to this point, Painter's pretty much, well, it kind of started off, Yumi's they're trying to cooperate, but now Yumi's kind of taking over everything and is controlling everything, even in Painter's world. So the first part of this chapter, Painter decides to take matters into his own hand. And I understand. I like. It's weird because I sympathize with Painter, but I also understand Yumi's point. I don't necessarily agree with her trying to force him to become her, which is essentially what she's doing.
Yes.
But 100%. Anyway, I guess we'll get into it. So Painter, what he does is he decides to not do several of the typical traditional things. So he feeds himself, he bathes himself, and he demands that Lee Yoon give him paper and paints, and he's going to paint. Because he says that helps him focus and, I guess, meditate in a way. So, of course, Yumi's freaking the heck out. She's, like, panicking full on. During, like, everything, she's, like, freaking out. She's, like, on the floor. She's, like, crying. She's,
like everyone's freaking out, but
yes.
Yumi most of all.
And he kind of explains it. He says that.
I love how he starts off by like just acting kind of nonchalant or whatever, while Yumi's like freaking out that he's feeding himself. Like, what? I got rice on my lips. Instead of like, it's because you're doing everything wrong according to Yumi. But I was just like, take that, you stupid woman.
Yes.
He would just love it. Yumi, he said, breathe. It's all right. The world isn't going to end. I have to talk like he's speaking to a child.
Yes.
But it's hilarious.
Anyway, I don't remember what exactly he says, but basically it's trying to deduce, like, in the previous chapters, Yumi said, like, I don't really need to practice bamboos anymore because I've mastered bamboos. I'm going to go out and have lunch. And so he's like, well, and then so he's kind of throwing that back in her face, like, kind of like, I'm here, maybe the spirits want me to make decisions, so I'm going to do this my way. So I'm going to feed myself, I'm going to bathe myself, which is like, you'd think would be not that big of a deal, but
it is.
This whole thing is so ritualistic. Anyway, so she's like freaking out, hyperventilating, and she actually brings up a really good point, and I was like, oh dang. Because he says, like, well, how's this different than what you do in my world? And she's like, in your world, I appear as myself. In my world, you appear as me. Everything that you're doing, people think it's me doing it. And Painter's like, oh, that's actually a good point. Because he could be, like, totally effing up her life. Because, like, if they all of a sudden, switch back, Painter's just going to be like, oh, I was out of town. And everything's pretty much going to go back to normal for him. But Yumi's going to be faced with all sorts of these consequences. They're going to be like, you were crazy, woman. Like, you were insane. Like, doing all this crazy stuff, feeding yourself. What do you think you're doing?
I'm okay with that. She'd probably just talk her way out of it. She learned to lie. Maybe she'll come up with something.
But the big part of this chapter.
I do like, before we go too far, but like after Yumi has her little breakdown, like Lee Yoon shows up and like tries to give her typical, you are chosen, you do what you want, but blah, blah, blah. But Painter doesn't let her do it. I'm just like, freaking finally! I was really getting sick of Lee Yoon walking all over Yumi and Yumi walking all over Painter, and then Painter just becoming a friggin' road mark or whatever the heck. So I was happy I felt great reading this chapter when he was finally just like, It's crap.
I totally agree. In chapter 23, we see that come out a lot more, and I think in a really important way for Yumi. I do think that generally this should hopefully be a wake-up call for Yumi, that she probably shouldn't do whatever she wants in his world, and play more by the rules, maybe listen a little more to what he says. I think it's also good that she hasn't listened, though, because she's kind of gotten to know the other painters a little bit, and we find out that they're not as terrible as Painter makes them seem they are.
Yeah, they
definitely have some things that they're not perfect, obviously, but I think Painter's kind of blown it way out of proportion.
It's like that thing, like, whenever you're the one who, like, you feel wronged or whatever, then, like, you can really blow it out of proportion. I've noticed that a lot about, like, all sorts of people. So
yeah, so I think bottom line, this is good for both of them, but I think that they both need to be a little more considerate, because if I was in Yumi's position and I was watching someone who looked like me just totally screwing up my life, because you got to think Yumi, since she was a baby, has been brainwashed and conditioned to live a certain way, and then to have that ripped away the way it is going to be like insane. Like, I can't even imagine how jarring it is, and then to have someone come in and just F it up right in front of you, like, I would be like, Yumi's a lot more calm than I would be, like, if I was in a similar situation. But we do get an insane revelation, though. I wasn't expecting this, to be honest with you. They kind of, before this revelation, they kind of come to an uneasy truce, I guess I would call it. Like, they're both like, okay, we need to relax a little bit. We both need to, like, work together a little bit more and do things our own way a little bit. And we get, like, I'm kind of brushing over this. You can stop me at any point if you want to get more detailed, but
I still am trying to figure out what you're getting into, what you're trying to bring up.
Oh, I'm trying to, because I think there's two really important things that happen in this chapter. One we haven't talked about yet, but the first half of the chapter, the important thing, in my opinion, is that Yumi and Painter kind of mature a little bit. I think the initial shock of what's happening is starting to wear off, and they're trying to get more used to it. They're trying to push back a little bit. Painter is, and they're trying to come to better footing and better grounds and make progress in their relationship. That's basically what I'm trying to say. The first half of the chapter is. There's a lot of details in there. And there's a lot of things, little things, nuanced things that happen that I don't know if we need to get in, if you want to get into. But after all of this, they kind of spend a day doing their thing, and at the end of it, they go back to her little thing. What's it called? Her freaking what is it? Carriage. Jeez Louise. I can't think of words.
I'm having trouble trying to figure out what you're talking
about. But Hwanji kind of stops and wants to talk to Yumi.
Holy crap. Yeah, it was really exciting to see Painter finally kind of like take a step, like, well, you're not going to do what I said in my rules. I mean, you kind of like attitude, which I freaking loved so much. But this was just like, it flattened me. I was so just like, whoa, I knew it. Something was wrong in this whole situation. I knew it.
It did feel so wrong. We couldn't put our finger on what it was, but it just felt off. Like Leon and just her whole situation just seems so weird and off. Yes. And we find out why. So Hwanji says she acts a little weird at first. She's like, if Leon asks, can you say that it wasn't me that made you this way? And then Yumi's like, the F, like, and speaking through Painter, it's kind of like, why, like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would that even be a thing? And she's like, oh, well, my last yoki-hiju was reformist. And she was like, and Yumi's like, a what? And then Hwanji's like, and then like tries to run away, but luckily Painter's there and he grabs her. Yes. And he's like, wait, just please tell me. He's nice about it. He doesn't like force her to stay, but he does get her attention, and they're able to get out of her that apparently, out of the 14 yoki-hiju, only Yumi and one other are as strict traditionalists as she is. And it's not a new thing. It's been going on for the past 100 or so years.
Yes.
That people, and it is like a huge bombshell. I mean, like, I was like,
gosh.
I was like, the whole time I was listening to this, I was just like, poor Yumi. Like this realization is like, this is like, oh, Lee Yoon has taken on like a new level of like evil.
Yeah.
Like I was like starting to put her in the same as I do like child sex traffickers.
Wow.
Because I was like, Lee Yoon,
she's pretty close to that.
That is just completely, oh man. So anyways, and these other yoki-hiju, they can take days off. They get to know who their family is and get to spend time with their families.
Yeah, it sounds like they've got like, I kind of thought it as like a comedian or a band or even like movie actors or TV actors. Like, you know, they'll go off and they'll travel to do their job, but they'll still see their families at like big events. Like they'll have summers off or something and holidays. It seems like that's what the other yoki-hiju are experiencing. They know who their family is and they get to see them.
Yeah, and they get to interact
at least
with
a few times a year, or like have a few weeks total in the year where they get to be with their family.
Yeah, and she was saying it with the days off, like they decide when they work, and if they're like overworked, they can stop. And her last yoki-hiju that Juan Jay worked with, like only worked like 5 days a week or 4, 6, something like that. Like she took days off, and Yumi is just completely floored. Like she has been conditioned. I said this before, but she's been conditioned and brainwashed by Lee Yoon to just completely dehumanize herself, to completely. I'm like at a loss for words. I was getting so pissed. Like I was like getting livid, and I had to stop. And I was like, "Wow, Brandon is like again showing how freaking good his writing is. That he can like elicit this such a powerful emotional response in me."
Yes,
but I mean, like I was just thinking like the anger and the betrayal, and then like there's got to be a level of humiliation. And Painter's even like kind of like, oh shit, like this is crazy. And at first he's like, how could she? And he's like, oh, who would tell her this? She is so sheltered, and even her servants, if they get too familiar, we learned in last chapters, if she gets too familiar with them, they're taken away. And so,
and I'm wondering that because Huanji. Was that the one who they're talking to?
Huanji, yeah.
Because she mentions that with her last yoki-hiju, she was one of these reformists. But why did she leave that yoki-hiju? Was she removed because she got too close to that yoki-hiju, or is it just like that's one of the things Lee Yoon does because she's like, oh, they're getting too close?
No, remember she retired. Her last one retired. That was. Oh,
was that the one?
That was the next bombshell. Is Lee Yoon has led Yumi to believe that if Yumi doesn't like she breaks tradition and doesn't do it every day like she's been doing it, or if she is deemed unfit, she'll be forced to go to a prison and work in a prison cell and stack stones. And so she's operating on the assumption that that's what happens when the yoki-hiju becomes old and feeble. But Juan Jay says no, when they reach 70 they retire and they go and just live normal lives.
But still, that's still a really old age to be stacking
rocks. That's a really
rocks.
old. That's insane. Like, but again, to realize that this whole time she's just been completely betrayed, and by the person that's raised her. I mean, Yumi. There's no way that Yumi doesn't view Lee Yoon as a mother.
I think she does.
Because I mean, as an infant, raising up as an infant. I mean.
That's just like the typical human response is to attach to something. But
and I think this even comes through in the writing. You know, Yumi is just kind of like, we need to leave. Like, can you go to sleep, Painter? Like, I need to be somewhere else. And then the next chapter starts 2 days later.
Yeah, like we totally skip over Painter's world. But
yeah, one thing I'm glad at least is Painter doesn't rub it in. Painter's not like, I freaking told you, Yumi, you dumb bitch.
Right. I wouldn't have been that good. I would have been like, oh, I knew it. And like, how many times has Painter even, I don't know if he's ever said it out loud, actually, now that I think back, but he's always been like, man, there's something weird about Lee Yoon. She's messed up. And it's like, duh. But this actually raised a question with me because earlier in this, it said that there's 2 yoki-hiju that are this strict. One is
herself and another one.
Yumi, and then someone else. But that other yoki-hiju that's also strict and not part of the what do they call themselves? The people who work the other yoki-hiju.
The wardens?
No, not the wardens. Like they called them the reformers. Was that what it was? They were.
Yeah.
It was reformers. Okay, let's get myself thinking something else.
So.
But so Yumi is the most successful yoki-hiju because she can summon 37.
I know, but she's only done that once though.
Yeah, it's true. But what I'm kind of asking is like, is the other one that successful? Because it says she's the only one who's ever done that.
No, because
no one's even gotten like over 10.
So it says Wanjie kind of brings this up because Yumi asks, she's like, "Are these other ones like? Do they suck?" And she said, "No, her last yoki-hiju averaged 11 spirits per time, and Yumi averages 12." So everything that is Yumi's life is just complete. It's shattered. You don't need. We've been saying this from the beginning. There's no way you need to be this strict, and this ritualistic. And man. We were right. I'm so happy when I get predictions right, because normally I'm like totally freaking off. Like, this is gonna happen. It's like not even close. And I'm like, but this time I was like, yes.
Yeah. Actually, that reminds me. One of my predictions proved to be false. In this chapter, because like when Painter starts to paint before all this happens, like he was kind of hoping that spirits would come up, and they didn't. I'm still holding out hope. What you're just about to say.
I'm holding out hope because what he was doing sketches.
Yeah, and he the one thing that got me too is like he sketched someone.
He did like a very sketched outline of Wanjie or Chae-young, one of the attendants.
And then Yumi.
And then he did one of Yumi.
But then he went right to bamboo.
Yeah.
And did nothing but bamboo until it was like hours later or something like that.
I think that the spirits are attracted to almost to emotion like a spren in Roshar. Because when Yumi was like totally, remember the beginning of the book, Yumi was like totally forgetting herself and just totally immersed in what she was doing. And that was what attracted 30 some odd spirits. And I think that's the mode that Painter needs to be in. Yeah,
so Painter is also falling into the same kind of thing that Yumi was, where like Yumi thinks everything needs to stay the same. Everything needs to be strict. There needs to be rituals, blah, 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 blah. But he's kind of in the same way, but he's got the more like, oh, I just need to fall into it. But then he goes right into his old habits of painting nothing but bamboo.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I'm not an artist, as I said before, but painting or drawing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. I would be like, screw art. I'm gonna go.
And I wonder if that's part of the problem. I wonder if I don't think he views it as art anymore. I think he just sees it as a way that works to get rid of nightmares, and that's just what he does. He's not doing art. He's just getting rid of nightmares, which sucks.
So I think I'm kind of torn, because I kind of think like, oh, maybe painting doesn't work, but it's also more like, well, he spent so much time doing bamboo. That's not going to attract the spirits.
No,
so
I don't think that kind of art will attract the spirits. Just like him stacking a few stones didn't attract the spirits. I think that stacking stones the way that they do it is just the way that anybody can learn, and is the most consistent way to attract X spirits. But I bet that almost any type of art or any type of organizing chaos into a pleasing way will attract the spirits. But I think it's the mindset and maybe the natural ability. Like only yoki-hiju can do this.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely part of it. Like it has to be. I think it's the mindset. I think it's what he's doing. And we'll get into later chapters, but I have another prediction regarding that.
I actually want to make a prediction right now. I think my prediction is that now that Yumi's world has just been utterly shattered and destroyed, and I think now the whatever you want to call it, the stone has started rolling down the hill, or whatever that saying is, that like now maybe she'll think of like, okay, it doesn't have to be this way. Is this the best way to do it? Is there a better way to do it? Do I even need to stack rocks? Should I try doing this? Like it's going to open all the doors to like all the what if questions that maybe she can start experimenting with and finding better ways to do this, to where they can still be successful, maybe get 30 spirits, or they're going to find some other new way where it doesn't even involve spirits at all. Something like that. But
I think that I agree, and I think that Painter is going to be extremely important in this process just because of what happens next. But before we get to what happens next, there was one line that when I like heard that, I was like, damn, like that hit me so this line hit me so, I don't know why, but I was like, I had to like pause the audiobook and like just sit there and think for like a couple. I was just like, holy crap. But this is Wit actually coming in, and he says, abuse is a more effective form of captivity than a cell will ever be. And I was like, holy crap, like That's so powerful. That's such a powerful line, and like you can see that all over the place. Like people that are in abusive relationships, like these women who constantly go back to a man that like beats them and is drunk all the time and won't leave them. Like
just some sort of loser like that. Yeah.
Yes,
That is insane. That needs to go up on the wall or something.
And then I was like, okay, Yumi, you need some serious mother effing help, because Leon comes and Yumi kind of confronts her through Painter, which I think is really good that Painter was in control of the body and talking.
Yeah, because nothing would have happened.
Because Leon comes in and just kind of like, how long have you known, or how did you find out? And then Yumi's like, find out about what? And then Leon confirms what Hwanje said. She's like, how do you know about the reformists? And then Yumi was like, shoot, because she was like half hoping that Hwanje was lying or didn't fully understand everything, but Leon just confirms it.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, the gaslighting that happens next is just another level.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Of just, oh my gosh, because she's like, sorry, I didn't point it out to you. I mean, you could have figured this out at any time. And I'm like, how? How, Leon?
Honestly.
How? You brainwashed this poor girl. You don't let her get near anybody. People can't even look at her. You have to put these freaking umbrellas up, and if anyone gets familiar, you cut them out, and then you're the only one she has consistent interaction with. How? And she's like, sorry, I didn't point it out to you. You could have figured this out. And I'm like, I'm gonna kill her.
Right. If she was in front of you, she would have got punched.
Yeah. But then Yumi has kind of a good thing. She's like, you shouldn't have taught me how to read. And I was like, ooh. But like Painter does kind of step in, and he like stands up and confronts Leon, because there's a couple times I've skipped over the conversation a little bit and gotten to the main points, but there's a couple times where Yumi's a little flabbergasted and doesn't know what to say, and Painter's able to step in. And also there's one point where Leon does what Yumi classifies as a signature glare that makes her melt and makes her capitulate and give up. But Painter doesn't. Painter like matches Leon stare for stare.
Thank goodness for that.
And Yumi in the background is like, wow, how is he able to do that? And I'm like, okay, thank goodness Painter was there, because who knows what would have happened. Because Leon finally backs down, and Painter's like, so I can do this. Like I can do what I want. And then Leon's like, okay, and leaves. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But then, oh my gosh.
It's crazy how people like that are almost like they only have power over you because you're giving power to them.
And but we found out that's exactly what's happening with Leon.
Yeah, that's what happened there.
Exactly what's happening with Leon. And Yumi needs some serious help, because even after all of this, she's like, well, Leon was right. Like, she did the best she could. And I'm like, girl, she stole your life.
Seriously.
She has completely ruined you and just done all these unnecessary things. Like, yes, I understand what you do is important, but I mean, you make 11 floating boxes per village. Is that really saving an entire civilization from
especially when how many
collapse?
How many times have they talked about it now? Like, how long have these people gone on without such and such thing? Like years? Like, okay,
like that one guy.
So they can survive without the yoki-hiju.
Like they don't need these things to like completely survive. And so Painter needs to stick around for a while to help Yumi process this and go through all this, because I'm afraid that she's just gonna go into it. Yes. But
I think it would 100% be that. So maybe we could even go to if we could argue to Yumi and be like, maybe the spirits maybe Painter wasn't sent to you so you two could help the spirits somehow. Maybe he was sent there to help you freaking out and figure this crap out and get out from under this, because it's not helping anyone or whatever.
I think so. I think Painter was needed to help Yumi do what happens next. And now we're getting past all the heavy stuff, all the stuff that made me angry, and getting into kind of like the funny part of the chapter. And this is something I've noticed with all these. I've seen this in our life with like our family and like friends. Like when someone is raised with like strict religious rules and like someone always nagging on them, and then all of a sudden they're free, they like immediately go rebellious.
Yeah.
But they rebel in like stupid ways. Like just like stupid, silly, like okay, like that's rebelling to you. Like, okay, sure, yeah, you do you. Like they'll get a tattoo, or they'll start drinking, and I'm like, okay, like that's not really rebelling. But Yumi's like totally that way, because she's like, I can go outside and I'm gonna start jumping where everyone can see me. And I'm like, okay, honey. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're rebelling. Yeah, good job. But I was like,
the part was just like, okay.
But then the funniest line in all these chapters, oh my gosh, I was dying, is just Painter suggests, he's like, you know what we can do? We can go spy on those people and maybe sabotage their machine. And she was like, that would be breaking the law. But the audiobook was just like, oh, it was like on point. I freaking love Kate Redding. But it was so hilarious. She was like, well, we should go do. So she's like talking to Painter, like all these things they should do. Like, we should run away, or like we should go to the Tutorial City and like go stare at people. And he's like, let's go sabotage the machine. And she's like,
you think she would have been like, yeah, because like she hates that thing. It says blasphemy.
Yeah, but she's like, you're breaking the law. And I was dying. That was so funny. And we also get a classic saying. It wasn't explicitly said, but we get this classic saying where the grass isn't always greener on the other side. But Yumi's like, I should be like you, Painter, like all these great things. And he's like, oh, well, I'm actually not that great. Like, I have a hard time making friends. I can't freaking do anything. Like, even though I have all these choices, like my life sucks. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's like, yeah, Yumi's like had this horrible thing, but you know, life isn't going to immediately become easier and better.
Well, we skipped over it because it was a lot more pressing things to speak of. But we did get another piece of art in this chapter.
Oh, yes.
It's just typical. It's just Painter painting with Yumi staring at him with her weird looking face.
I think that this is actually a very important piece of art, and I think it shows their developing relationship in a very interesting way. Because Yumi is like adoringly looking at Painter.
Yeah.
And like, I've only seen that face in those romantic comedies. And I'm like, yep, she's fallen in love with Painter, which, you know, makes sense. I don't know if it's necessarily like an actual love or if it's more
infatuation
or something along sometimes I'm stuttering. It was like something along the lines of infatuation, in that I think he is the only man she has ever had any more than passing interaction with.
Yeah, that's what I was going to think of, because I think it's definitely no accident that everyone who comes in contact with Yumi, all of her attendants and Li-Yun, are all female. Like, I'm sure that is definitely like, I don't know if all the yoki-hiju have males helping them at all. I mean, it would be kind of weird to have.
And are they all
guys
women? Are they all women?
I think.
Are there male yoki-hiju?
For some reason, I thought they were all male, all the yoki-hiju, or all female.
That's kind of what I thought too, but I don't know if it ever explicitly said that. I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah, I don't think
if you know, let us know. But
yeah.
Anyway, I think that's more what it is. And there's been several instances where she gets anxious and nervous if he shows signs of leaving, which I think makes sense, because growing up, if she ever got close to anyone, they were gone. Li-Yun would take them away, just gone, which is like a terrible way to be raised.
Yeah, now.
And so I think she's
got Painter, who can't be taken away.
I think she's got a weird separation anxiety going on.
Could be.
Like, where she really likes Painter. She likes the conversation, the interaction, and having just a normal friend. And it's making her have feelings for him. And I think also when they touch, all that emotions is definitely muddling things. So I don't know if I would necessarily say they'll end up in love or end up falling in love. I can see it as a possibility, but I see it more as Li-Yun is just, or not Li-Yun, Yumi is just like really new to relationships and doesn't really know what these emotions are that she's feeling.
I definitely think that, and the thing that I'm kind of thinking of is they are still part of two different worlds, and they're not physically going back and forth. It's just their spirit or their soul or whatever. So it's kind of like, I don't think they'll end up together at the end of this.
If they do, it would have to be like Wit teaching one of them how to.
Yeah, like how maybe that'll happen. Maybe that's the thing that he'll help with when he comes out of his little statue hanger his little coat hanger statue. Like he'll be able to be like, oh, well, it's just simple as this, and then you guys can travel between worlds as much as you want or whatever. I don't know.
That'd be cool.
That would be interesting. Maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe the whole point of this is they want to get both these worlds connected because they can help each other, because Yumi's world is hot, Painter's is cold and dark, so maybe they just need to mix it up a little. I don't know.
And then we get the next funny part. I love this next part too. So they decide that they're going to go spy on the scholars. This is all still in chapter 22. This was a longer chapter.
Yeah, it was.
They decide they're going to go spy. Wow, this was so hilarious to me. After deciding that, so they sneak out, because at the ritual place they tell Li Yun to don't let anyone disturb me. Don't disturb me yourself. So they use that as a cover to go spy. And they get to a point where they have to cross, I think it said like 50 yards, 40 yards of just open ground. And Yumi sans Painter is in this really bright yellow, super poofy dress. And he's like, we're not going to sneak across on this. So he starts stripping. And Yumi's like, oh, what are you doing? Someone's going to see me naked. So he strips off everything except for basically an undershirt and like pants.
Which is like a lot of clothes for like our standards, but still like she's practically naked. Yeah.
Li Yun views that as like her underwear. She's like freaking out, and he's like, "We gotta like go across here without being seen." That was so funny. She herself strips off, and to match what Painter's wearing, and Painter's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that?" And she's just like, "Solidarity, let's go!" And starts running. I'm like, "I'm down, Yumi." I was laughing. It was really funny. So they make it to the tent.
This is all in chapter 3, actually. 23.
Oh, this is all I have. What's in my notes for 22?
Because 22 ends with like Yumi asking Painter to go to sleep.
That's how 21 ends. Am I totally confused?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I'm not ahead. I just said the chapter wrong.
Okay. Anyway, continue.
Let's rewind. So this is chapter 23.
Yes, so we are in 23.
And it's a really long chapter. But anyway, so they make it to the tent. And they have a pretty good idea. It's to have Yumi go into the tent because she's a spirit and can't be seen. And so she's able to go through the wall, and we get some interesting information. I won't go into all the details unless there's something that stuck out to you about the details. But basically, Yumi's able to figure out that the spirit, that somehow, and this was crazy to me, the machine runs on Heon lines.
Yeah, holy cow.
She sees them open up a compartment of it, and she sees 2 Heon lines that are the same colors as on Painter's world, which is crazy. And another thing that happens is she's figuring out that they're having a hard time making it run, and they drop some hints here and there. They're saying that they need a spirit to make it run, and they're like, this is supposed to attract spirits, and then they say, maybe that yoki-hiju will summon a spirit and we can take it. And so I was like, oh, are these scientists capturing spirits, and that's what the spirit is saying? So it's saying help us because they're being trapped by scientists, and the scientists don't let them fade away like they do when normally. So I was like, maybe that's what they're actually captive by these scientists, and they have to be saved. So that was one thing. The craziness is when she sees the Heon lights when they're trying to turn on the machine, she starts to turn on the Heon lines and like gets sucked toward it. And I was like, run!
Yeah, honestly. Get the heck out of there.
And one of the scientists notices that and is like, quick, get the capturer. And I was like, oh, great. She's going to get captured by these dang scientists. But luckily, she's able to escape the tent. And she finds Painter outside, and he's been climbing trees. And he has some very interesting discoveries. Kind of skipping to Painter for a little bit. While Yumi's in the tent, Painter climbs in a tree and realizes that if he gets really close to the tree, he himself starts to become weightless.
Yes.
And I was like, I wonder if this tree shares similar properties of whatever that metal is that Wax uses to make himself lighter.
It's been too long for me since I've read. I don't remember exactly what metal.
But I wonder if it's like a similar...
It's not steel. Copper?
No, it's not copper. Might be iron.
Dang it all. I can't remember.
I don't remember either. But when he's close to the tree, like clear near the trunk, it makes him weightless. But if he goes near on the outer branches, he loses that and he becomes heavy enough to like make the tree tip. So he's discovered that while Yumi's in the tent.
Yes.
And he sees Yumi come bursting out and she's freaking out and she's like, they saw me, and he's like, yeah, right. But then he sees the scientists run out and they're like, over here, and he's like, crap. And they have like some weird machine or something that they're holding that points and shows where Yumi is, like some sort of spirit detector. Which solidified my thoughts that the scientists are the one capturing spirits, and that's what the spirit was saying when it was like, help us, or like release us.
And they even mentioned somewhere that this machine has been around for a while. Maybe not like hundreds of years or anything, but maybe a few years.
Yeah, it's definitely not new.
It's new to like Yumi and townspeople and stuff, but that's about it. I did think it was interesting in this chapter too that it like Yumi talks about her instincts, and it made me laugh to myself because it's so obvious that her instincts are not good. Her instinct is to do rituals and crap, like, and she's had such a sheltered life. So I hated that she was like, "Oh, my instincts." And I'm like, "No, shut it." She's had such a sheltered life. What the heck is she gonna have instincts about?
That actually reminds me, because when she's trying to get through the tent, at first she can't get through, like she's pushing on it, won't let her through, and so what you were saying, her instinct was she starts praying to it, and she's like, "Oh, spirit of the tent, let me in." And Painter's like, "The F are you doing?"
And it didn't work. She had to go around the entrance, didn't she, the first time?
No.
Oh, okay.
She was able to get. She found out she has to not think about it, so she like closed her eyes and just fell forward and was able to get through. And same on the way back out.
I knew the way back out.
Yeah, she closed her eyes and jumped through, but yeah, it was intense. I thought she was going to get captured, and that's going to have to be the next part, is that Painter's going to have to go in there as Yumi and be like, "Release the spirit you just captured." They'll be like, "No," but
yeah, I wonder what would have happened. That would have been interesting.
yes,
Was it the same part? The same part. Was this the same part you were talking about where she's like, "Oh wait,
we're in chapter 23 now. Yeah, 24 now, by the way. For those,
I'm thinking of when she first wanted to start rebelling. I think it was at the beginning of the chapter. Oh, it was the part that I thought was funny. She's like, "Painter," she said, "eager. Let's break some rules." I thought it was hilarious, and she's like, even Leon agrees. I can do that. Let's try it. He's even like, "Isn't that what I've been doing?" That was my funny part, but I also love near the end when she's like, "That was the worst thing I've ever done," throwing her hands in the air. "Let's do it," or "It was wonderful." It's like, she's a natural rebel. She just needs better instincts.
Yes, that's what I was saying before. We're like, these people always rebel in the stupidest ways. I'm like, okay, good job rebelling.
That was before they even went into
very rebellious
tent,
of you,
which was funny. Yes, chapter 24.
Their escape's pretty clever. Painter, he leans down the tree so that she can grab on the tree and get up there with him, which I don't think he necessarily would have had to do. She probably would have been yanked along with him, but it wouldn't have been comfortable. And he unhooks the chain, and the tree begins to float off, and they escape the scientists by floating up into the sky, which I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I wonder if no one's done this before, or if Yumi just doesn't know about it, because I think if they realize that if you stay close to the tree, it can make a person light enough to go float up in the air, they would have air travel.
Yeah, I don't know, because this kind of seems like one of those things where, like, maybe her planet is not advanced enough. There was no one around. Like, I wonder how we could harness that to make it easy. Everyone's too scared of it, or they're just like, "Oh no, that's ridiculous. It's a tree. You're not supposed to ride it. You're supposed to grow stuff on it or whatever."
It seems like it'd be so easy though, because I mean, they have these huge H chains that have to tether to the ground to keep it there. So if you untether it and like attach something to it, could you have like a bunch of trees attached to a platform, and you'll have to lift up the platform, and then somehow find a way to propel it, and then it seems like you could have like entire towns that would live up in the sky. Which I wonder if that, I don't know, that would be cool if they did that, but I don't know, because we find out why the trees have evolved to float, and once you get further up it becomes really humid and moist, and maybe a little, I don't know if it's at cooler, but it was humid.
Yes, I seriously just think it's that if people really are barely surviving at the way that like Yumi's been led to believe, then it just seems like they're just not stable enough to start thinking of innovative ways to make life easier like that or anything.
Yeah, the hard thing is I can't tell if no one's done it or just if this is from Yumi's perspective and Yumi hasn't thought of
Yeah,
it.
that is the hard part. Makes you wonder when you get stuff like that, like, because we get stuff like the Mistborn's books, and we get to see their civilization advance. Back when it was with Vin, it was just all swords and shields and all their metallurgic abilities. No, what do they call them? Because it was like hemalurgy.
I thought it was Alamance.
Allomancy.
I don't remember what.
They called it, but that
there
was
was
all
like a
the
phrase,
allomantic powers and blah, blah, blah. But then you see like stuff with my gosh, I feel like I've read these books years ago. But you get the next generation of the Mistborn series, and like it's like the civilization has advanced a lot. They've got modes of transportation besides a horse or using your metal powers to jump. They've got firearms and yada, the list goes on. But Yumi's world just seems like it's still far behind. And it makes, I think why I brought it up is because it'd be interesting if like Brandon decided to keep writing the story, just like see her civilization advance. If he wrote it like the Mistborn trilogy and stuff, where he wrote about this era, then the next era, blah, blah, blah.
And then we get another art. I think this is my favorite art of the whole book so far.
This one was a really cool one.
It's really colorful, really well done. It shows Yumi and Painter. They're in the undergarments. It just looks like they're wearing a shirt and pants, and they're floating up in the air. And just like a really nice picture.
But this one was interesting to me because like sometimes I just don't imagine things correctly. I was literally thinking like maybe like a super young tree that was maybe 10 feet tall, little thing. Well, I guess he said he could reach his arms around it, so I was kind of thinking like it was a bigger tree, but this tree seems huge.
Yeah, it does seem.
Which I still think is super cool. I would want to play in it.
Yes. And then we get another hint at romance.
Gross.
Because Painter looks at Yumi and she's like, "What are you staring at?" And then he said, Wit says, "Of all the times he wasn't a poet, but this was the perfect line." Oh, yeah, she said, "You're staring." And then he says, "I only stare when I see something too beautiful for my eyes to take in at once."
Oh, yes.
And then he also mentions that, like, he gets this impression when he's up there to, like, travel and to, like, fly through the sky. But then he's like, why would he want to do that when he has everything he wanted right with him there? So I think he's starting to fall for Yumi the same way Yumi's starting to fall for him, but maybe in a little more real of a sense. Like,
yeah. His would seem more real, especially with his, like, epiphany or whatever you want to call it with Akane, where when he was like, well, what do you like about her? She's pretty. Well, besides that, she was nice to me. That's it. So maybe it would be. So that does make me think a little bit more that like there's going to be something happen to where they'll find a way to stay together through one means or another.
We'll see. We shall see indeed.
I do think it's funny while they were escaping on the tree, Yumi's still kind of like scared, like, oh, they're gonna find us, they're gonna watch where we land, and she's kind of freaking out. She's but yet for some reason I feel good, like I want to do it again. I'm broken. I loved how she said that. Because everything in her life is breaking, so she might as well be broken too. But Painter just points out, you are human. I was going to say too, it's not much, but we get a Cosme reference in this chapter.
Oh, we do.
Yes, it's just a small one, but still. He's talking about, this is Hoy talking about flowers. Flowers sprouting from center of lily pads dance with bushes that spread limbs wide to catch the thermals, blah, blah, blah. Similar to the white sprigs and dandelions released on Scadrial. So, cool. And it was this one, I feel like with Tress, we got a ton of like Cosme references, it felt like. This one, that was like the first one, aside from like Hoyd and design being in this world.
I'll say Hoyd. Design's a pretty big one.
But I thought it was fun getting a little like, oh, this is still Cosmere. Don't forget.
Yeah. So yeah, it takes them 20 minutes to fly back. I'm just reading this now. I think this is funny where the very picture of innocence And then Lee Yoon says, "Did you see someone suspicious skulking through here? There has been hooliganism afoot in the city." It's like, hooliganism. I think even earlier Yumi said hooliganism.
Yumi says that for the first time, and then
Painter's like,
"Oh, this is where he got it. She got it from was from
the freak." And then he's like, "Ah, Lee Yoon says it."
So this gets interesting. Right after this, what happens is they go. Painter has his first like task as a yoki-hiju to summon a spirit, and the scientist guys take the machine out to somewhere. I assume it's in the ritual place or whatever. I can't remember, but the machine starts stacking and Painter starts stacking, and a spirit is summoned. A singular spirit, but there was something interesting about it. I gotta remember what it was. Oh, I guess before all that happened, Yumi tells him about what she saw in the tent and like the Heian lines. It's like, "Oh, you're on the brink of industrial revolutions. Things are about to change in your world." And she's worried about like it getting dark, like his world, but it's like, no, that was before anything happened. Okay, I was right. So, Lee Yoon came to find them to see if they had seen anything, but she also came to like take them to the place of ritual where the machine has already been taken. And Yumi's like pushing Painter, but like, "Oh, you can beat it. Look how primitive it's pedestrian those stacks are, straight up and down, blah blah blah." So it's like, and then Painter has the best stacking of his life. He does like 10 rows of all like 10 high, something like that. I want to look at the actual. I don't remember if I can. Oh, it looks like he got 8 stacks, but they were all pretty high up, and he was feeling a lot of pressure because with this new display of the machine, like all the crowd is like, "Oh my gosh, like all whispering up and about the event going on." So he was struggling a little bit to concentrate, but yeah, he got 8 stacks, and none of them had fallen, and I'm trying to find how many like the highest one was, but he was super shocked that it was working.
I like Yumi's reaction.
Yeah, what?
So that while he's stacking and like doing things, he's like feeling like a connection, like he's feeling something tugging, and he's tugging back, and something starts to peek above in the ground. And he like looks and it goes away, and then but Yumi gasped and grinning like a maniac. So I picture her like.
She probably has something creepy like that.
I do think it might be a little bit of a mistake for Painter and the machine to stack at once, because how do we know which one summoned the spirit?
That's actually the very problem they run into. Like so what Yumi kind of thinks about is when she summons the spirits, they come up around her, she says. But this spirit came in between it was like right between Painter and the machine, so it was like whatever in the middle. And like the other spirit she summoned, if I remember right, or maybe I just imagined this, they were just like little blue balls of light. Do you remember that being what it was? But this one that they summoned was the color of the Heian lights. The Heian, so it's got the magenta and the azure blue, whatever. But after all of this, unfortunately, Painter loses the spirit, and like somehow I think the scientists pulled out that same contraption they tried to capture Yumi with to get the spirits, so they kind of stole it away, even though it really makes it sound like it was the spirit came because of the machine and Painter, not because of one or the other. And unfortunately at the end he does lose control, and he like one of the stacks falls and makes his other one unstable, and kind of like has a small domino effect. And Lee Yoon kind of tries to step up and be like, "This is stupid. You took all this time. You can only get one spirit, and blah, blah, blah. It's going to take forever. No one's going to get anything." But then the person's like, "Well, we can put one of these machines in every city, and they'll work all day. And how many years does it take yoki-hiju to get to every city? And like, everyone has to go without for so long, and blah, blah, blah." It's like kind of this little, like, stupid argument goes back and forth. But I was quite surprised. Even though Painter didn't quite do it all by himself, he stacked a lot and helped summon a spirit. And I am really curious to know what it means that... I'm really curious to find out why this spirit looked like the Heian lines.
I wonder if it's like a mix
what's
of
up
like
with that?
his soul and this machine.
Yeah, could be. Or maybe it's because the machine uses Heian. Yeah, I was surprised Painter was able to do it, considering how hard it was for him to get one stack that was like 5 or 6 high. And after that, Yumi gives the idea, like, we need to summon another spirit to talk to it, like she did with the one before.
Sneak out at night.
Yes. But as the chapter ends, Painter's kind of expressing nervousness. I thought it was nervousness in his thoughts. He's like thinking about what Yumi was saying. Like, he kept stacking. Like, after the machine got the spirit, he kept stacking, I think he was trying to summon another spirit, or at least get practice. But he seemed like he might have been a little worried because he knew Yumi's story, where she summoned her first spirit, but then it took her months to summon the next one.
That's what this one, where at least Yumi speculates that it was a combination of him and the machine. So I'm still convinced it was that tugging he felt is necessary. And I'm wondering if this machine, this is like a beta test and they don't actually know if it'll work consistently.
Yeah. Maybe we are yet to find out that these spirits that look like the Heian lines, are not as good as the ones that Yumi can summon.
Especially, there seemed to be some foreboding. As they were walking up here, Painter made some mention of, when we get back to my world, I'll have to show you my history book so you can prepare for what's coming to your people.
Yes.
But he made it seem like really, like not a good thing. He even shivered thinking about it. And I think he was talking more about like the darkness, but
yeah, I think that part you're thinking of is what it was like, the darkness, because he was thinking about how the people lived in that shroud. Like, he's thinking like it sucks to travel that shroud through like a train, but having to walk through it and live in it, like, it just sounds awful. I think that's what made him shiver, from what I remember. But
that makes sense.
But I mean, like, Yumi won't have to worry about that, I don't think, because they've got the Heian lines apparently on Yumi's world, but it's not already covered in the shroud.
But I wonder if Painter's world used to be like that until the shroud came.
Could have been.
That's for some reason that's the impression I got. I don't know how correct it is, but that's just kind of the foreshadowing impression I got. I was like, ooh.
Very well could be. Whew, well, this was an exciting bunch of chapters.
Yes, we get insane revelation about Yumi's position. We see the machine at work, and just some crazy. This is how it always works, it's like kind of a little slow, pick up, a little slow again, and then bang,
yeah,
just get you. And you're just like, holy crap, slow down.
Yes, I would agree, and I'm worried about something, because it seems like if they're able to get another spirit to question, it's going to maybe answer one question, but like then there's going to be 100 more. We're like, well, what about this? I'm like,
I know they're gonna ask a question, and go yes, and then disappear. They're like, son of a.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm excited to see what's going to happen if Painter is able to summon another spirit for them to question. But it's also at the same time, it's like, how satisfactory will this actually be?
I think he should paint Yumi.
Sure,
I think he should make the painting that we saw in that art of them in the tree.
Yeah, you should. Maybe that'll summon a spirit.
Maybe he'll feel the tugging.
Maybe that would seem like it would evoke more emotion from him than painting.
Maybe
bamboo.
he should draw pictures of stacked rocks.
That would be interesting. Maybe he should draw a rock and then stack the papers he drew of the rocks.
Roller coaster of emotions, these chapters.
Oh, yes.
This is a great way to head into a climax. How many chapters do we have left in this book?
I don't know. We're 59% through, though.
Yeah, this is perfect. Things are getting crazy. We're past like the initial like, wow, let's figure out what's going on, and like all of a sudden, bang! Like we got to figure crap out now, and it's like, woo!
That's when stuff really starts going.
Such good chapters. I didn't want to stop. I never want to stop when we're reading these things. I always want to go to the next one, but alas, we must wait. And we have some exciting news about the next episode.
Oh yes, the next episode we're going to film in the woods.
In the wilderness.
We're going camping, and we don't want to come back into town, so we're going to film it up there.
Yes.
Because why not? It'll be fun.
Should be fun. So we'll see how that works, what we decide to do. Maybe it'll be during the night by the campfire. Maybe it'll be during the day next to a burbling river.
Maybe these next chapters will be scary, so it'll be spooky to do it around the fire. So we're gonna go against the advice you gave us. For don't read a scary book in the woods.
Don't do it.
But Yumi's not really scary, especially compared to the Dresden Files.
I'll just go outside and think that we're in the shroud and about to be attacked by a nightmare. But it'll just be a deer or something.
Right. I guess it would be good enough to scare your kids. Like, this neighbor gonna get me. Alrighty, everyone. That's all we got for you this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope your emotions were yanked down like ours were. Be sure to leave us a comment on your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. If you like the video, give us a like and subscribe perhaps. But only if you feel like it. Until next time, we'll see you in the woods.
See ya. It's over.